The U.S. and Taiwan bolster their defense cooperation in drone making, while Taiwan seeks more access to U.S. weapons.
所以只有双方有这个互信，才会让这些国防产业有合作。
World leaders kick off the first day of the UN General Assembly with a shared message: de-escalate the Middle East. North Korean defectors sound the alarm about the growing reach of China's state surveillance. Plus, a new lease on life, an arts initiative in Hong Kong aims to combat loneliness in the city's growing elderly population. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Liao. Taiwan is asking the U.S. to add it to the group of countries it licenses and produces weapons with. The request comes at the end of the 23rd U.S.-Taiwan Defense Industry Conference in Philadelphia. Reese Ayers is live with us in Taipei with more on what Taiwan is asking for. Reese, what would deeper integration into the U.S. defense supply chain mean for Taiwan?
Well, Leslie, it could mean a new level of security and defense potential for Taiwan, who currently relies 100% on the US for its arms sales. Inclusion into that list of nations who cooperates with the US on weapons development could be a way for Taiwan to break through other countries' restrictions on sales to Taiwan, opening up the chance for Taiwan to diversify its defense portfolio. Now, Taiwan's Deputy Defense Minister Xu Yanpu was at the conference in Philadelphia, and he said that actually a deeper arms relationship with the US could also send a strong message to China not to jump into a conflict with Taiwan, adding that the US letting Taiwan get involved with the production of parts for things like fighter jets and drones could also aid Washington in their exports of arms to other allies. And Taipei City Councillor Vincent Zhao was also at that conference, saying that Taiwan will struggle to continue to develop its own defense capabilities if it needs to continue relying on the US as its sole arms sales country. And American think tank Cato Institute has had a report out recently talking about this huge backlog of American arms sales to Taiwan in surplus of $20 billion US, and that includes some F-16V fighter jets. Taiwan has been increasing its defense budget over the past years. That budget next year expected to go to 2.45% of the GDP. But with China's shadow ever looming over Taiwan, it could be increased international cooperation that proves to be Taiwan's best line of defense.
All right, well, thank you, Reese. That was Reese Ayers reporting live from Taipei. Taiwan and the U.S. are looking to cooperate on drones with the goal of establishing a China-free supply chain. Executives from 26 U.S. drone companies were in Taiwan this week, meeting with military officials and local drone makers. Joyce Zeng looks at their visit.
U.S. drone and anti-drone system makers have wrapped up a 4-day trade mission to Taiwan to deepen cooperation on the unmanned aircraft technology. Hosted by the U.S.'s de facto embassy in Taipei and the trade arm of the U.S. Commerce Department, the mission brought together executives from 26 U.S. companies, as well as Taiwan's drone makers and high-ranking military officials. It included a visit to Taipei's government-run Security Institute, headed by the defense minister.
不管透过这个共同生产，或者是共同研发，或者是任何提供关键的元件等等这些部分，中科院都不会放过任何加入这样国际供应链的一个机会。
The collaboration comes as the U.S. and Taiwan aim to reduce economic reliance on China, especially in the technological domain. Citing national security concerns, U.S. President Joe Biden has been trying to slow down Chinese tech development, pursuing several bans and restrictions targeting Chinese semiconductors, electric vehicles, and related software. As Taiwan faces military pressure from Beijing, drones are an important strategic asset. The technology has proved valuable for countries defending themselves from a larger enemy, as seen in Ukraine's fight with invading Russia. Taiwan and the U.S. partnering on this particular technology, a strong sign to defense analysts of the two countries' close relations, despite being unofficial.
那在更大的这个架构看到是台湾、美国还有民主国家的共同合作，这一点对于就是反制其他具有侵略性的 autocracy 的这些国家来讲是非常有意义的。
Industry experts say Taiwan's drone development is still relatively young and will need more time to mature, especially given the aircraft's complexity.
无人机是一个很复杂的一个整合性的系统，所以它里面除了包含这个机体本身，飞控电脑很多的感测器，然后 AI 各种应用，所以是相对的复杂。
But given the country's leadership in cutting-edge chips, AI, and electronics, drone makers here have an advantage many others don't, being within arm's reach of some of the best partners there are in advanced tech. And now with the chance to bring the U.S. as a partner in the sector, it's a double win for both countries, for trade as well as for security. Fu Hua Hong and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
China has tested an intercontinental ballistic missile for the first time since the 1980s.
中国人民解放军火箭军向太平洋相关公海海域成功发射一发携载训练模拟弹头的洲际弹道导弹，准确落入预定海域。此次导弹发射是年度军事训练例行性安排，符合国际法和国际惯例，不针对任何特定国家和目标。
Reports indicate the missile traveled north of the Philippines and south of Taiwan, passing over the U.S. territory of Guam before landing in the Pacific Ocean. China's military says the missile was carrying a dummy warhead. This is the first atmospheric test of such a long-range missile by China in decades and comes amid U.S. warnings over Beijing's growing nuclear arsenal. Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has confirmed that a senior leader has been killed in an Israeli strike on Beirut. Ibrahim Mohammed Kubaisi was commander of Hezbollah's missile and rocket force. Israel is continuing to pound Lebanon in a bombing offensive, saying it's targeting Hezbollah weapon sites. Lebanon's health ministry says the death toll from the bombardment has reached over 550 people, including 50 children. Thousands of people are injured and tens of thousands have been forced to flee southern Lebanon. The conflict in Lebanon and the war in Gaza have been the main focus on the first day of the UN General Assembly in New York. Rosie Greninger has the latest.
As world leaders take the stage at the United Nations General Assembly in New York, they're all sharing the same message. There needs to be de-escalation in the Middle East.
Fanatics believe that military power can end this conflict. This is a delusion.
Israel's war on Hamas in Gaza and their recent escalation of violence in Lebanon against Hezbollah dominated the first day of the UN Assembly, amid fears of an all-out war in the region. US President Joe Biden defended Israel's rights to defend itself after Hamas attacked the country on October 7th, killing more than 1,200 people and taking more than 250 hostages.
Mr. President, can you confirm your...
After failing to secure a release deal for those hostages and a ceasefire agreement over the past 11 months, Biden continued to call for a diplomatic solution.
Full-scale war is not in anyone's interest. Even if the situation has escalated, a diplomatic solution is still possible. In fact, it remains the only path to lasting security to allow the residents from both countries to return to their homes and the border safely. And that's what we're working tirelessly to achieve.
A raft of countries took aim at Israel's action in Gaza, with the leaders of Jordan, Turkey, Qatar, Colombia and South Africa among the strongest voices in condemning its relentless war, which has claimed the lives of at least 40,000 people. Qatar's emir said those still defending Israel's rights to defend itself in the war were complicit, while Turkey likened Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to German dictator Adolf Hitler.
Buradan bir kez daha canları pahasına vatanlarını savunan Filistinli kardeşlerimi yürekten selamlıyorum. İsrail'in Filistin halkına yönelik saldırganlığının tek nedeni bir avuç ülkenin İsrail'e olan kayıtsız şartsız desteğidir.
With Israel now also fighting Hezbollah militants in Lebanon, Israel's UN ambassador told the assembly his country is open to ideas for de-escalation of that conflict, while other world leaders denounced their bombing assault, which has already claimed the lives of over 550 people.
We must all condemn this act on the part of Israelis with fullest force, because this is nothing but to expand this war beyond Middle East, which will be very, very serious for this world and have grave consequences.
The Pakistani leader, among others, saying a two-state solution and immediate ceasefire in Gaza is the only option to avoid such consequences. The UN General Assembly will continue for 4 more days, as world leaders discuss pressing international issues, with ending conflict in the Middle East top of the agenda. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
U.S. President Joe Biden called for stability across the Taiwan Strait in his final speech to the United Nations General Assembly. Biden said the United States needs to manage competition with China while avoiding conflict. He also highlighted the need for continued international cooperation, including U.S. partnerships in the Indo-Pacific.
The United States is unabashed, pushing back against unfair economic competition, against military coercion of other nations in the South China Sea, and maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits, and protecting our most advanced technologies so they cannot be used against us or any of our partners.
The sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has slammed the U.S. for sending a nuclear submarine to South Korea. According to North Korean state media, Yo Jong says the vessel's arrival in Busan is proof that the U.S. plans to, quote, bring out its nuclear strategic assets. South Korea's Navy said the USS Vermont is in the country to resupply. Kim's comments came after the foreign ministers of the U.S., South Korea, and Japan held talks in New York City on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. China's state surveillance has been described as a fishing net by people who fled North Korea. As the border between the two countries becomes increasingly militarized, human rights groups are raising the alarm. Harrell Hughes reports.
Fleeing China for freedom. These videos are said to show the journey of North Korean defector Shin Ju-ye as she leaves her adoptive country and makes her way across Southeast Asia to South Korea. In footage that cannot be independently verified, Shin's face and those of her companions has been blurred to protect their identities. Shin first escaped North Korea in the 1990s, settling across the border in China until the COVID-19 pandemic, when local officials said that in order to receive the vaccine, North Korean defectors like her had to register their biometric data with the police.
이거 질문해 놔드리고 언니 근데 한 가지요. 그때 백신도 맞고 뭐 코로나 이것도 하고 이러니까 좋은데 언니 한 가지 장점이 있다. 단점이 있다. 그거는 이제 우리가 북조선에서 북한 사람들 몽땅 잡아서 내보내 주셔야 할 때는 그저 고기 그물망이지. 그렇지. 저도 그랬어. 딱 잡아만 당기면 거기 다 있으니까 그저 다 잡혀서 북송돼야 되거든요.
Shin did not submit herself for registration, choosing instead to flee here to South Korea in 2023. And she is not the only North Korean defector to have moved here from China. Increasingly monitored by Chinese state officials, Choi Min-kyung made the same decision years earlier and now runs a rights group for defectors in South Korea.
더 정교하게 이 지문 우리 때는 없었어요. 우리 때는 가짜 신분증도 거의 그냥 만들 수 있었고 그렇게 엄하지도 않았어요. 그저 이래 보면 그냥 그저 통과하고 이럴 때냈는데요. 어제는 12년 전이잖아요.
The fake IDs, once a sense of freedom, now increasingly unavailable in China as state surveillance intensifies. Much of it centered here, along the 870-mile-long border with North Korea. There is now an electric fence, new deportation centers, facial recognition cameras, and increased patrols, not only making border crossings nearly impossible, but increasing the risk of capture for those who have managed it. Human rights groups in South Korea estimate the number of defectors deported from China over the past 2 years has increased by nearly 20%.
Based on the interviews that TJWG has conducted, we estimate that roughly 7 out of 10 escapees who try to make their way out of the country are arrested and repatriated back to North Korea by the Chinese authorities.
Beijing's official policy is that there are no North Korean defectors, instead calling them illegal economic migrants, which leaves them with no protection under international law. Foreign policy experts say the crackdown along the border could change the relationship between China and North Korea.
북한에서 넘어오는 탈북자 문제를 중국이 이렇게 이제 통제하고 있으니까 이 부분에 있어서 어떤 북한에게 어떤 이제 중국에게 유익한 좀 유리한 그런 것을 이제 요구할 수도 있고요.
From their new home in South Korea, Choi and Shin are now ringing the alarm for other North Korean defectors like them across China. Despite their fears, they made the perilous journey across borders, showing it is possible to have a life beyond the reach of China's state surveillance. Chris Monharel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, new tests show pesticides are to blame in a deadly food poisoning case, but questions remain as to how it ended up in the food.
For more stories from here in Hangzhou, Taiwan, and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. A mysterious deadly mass poisoning case is partly solved as new tests show the food the victims shared was tainted with pesticide. The question now is how the pesticide got in the food and whether it was put there on purpose. John Van Trieste reports.
This poisoned meal has killed 3 people. 2 people who ate it are still in intensive care more than a week on. Relatives of victims who have gotten better are relieved, but they also want answers.
这个事情发生的时候，我妈妈在医院，然后我就过来，我就在顾，有啊，有好转了。
At first, suspicion was on the snails used as a filling in these avai, a millet dumpling popular in some indigenous areas of Taiwan, including this corner of the southeast. But test results released Tuesday, both from the victims and from the millet used, show a pesticide is to blame.
有11个个案有送检，那血液跟尿液呢，都有检出到这个托福松的这个浓度。那12名个案当中有1位是因为他是已经死亡，然后在医院当中没有留存他先前的检体，所以我们就没有办法替这一位送验。
But how did the pesticide end up in the food? The 83-year-old woman who made the dumplings was the first to eat them and died that same day. The rest of the victims ate the leftovers from her kitchen, including the dumplings, while mourning her death that evening. Was there some kind of mistake? Or did the woman poison her food on purpose? Police are taking the second possibility seriously. It's a mystery that has shocked this rural community and gripped the whole country. Ryan Wu, Fu Hua Huang, and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The Thai king has approved a marriage equality bill, making Thailand the first country in Southeast Asia to officially recognize same-sex marriage. The bill was passed by the Thai parliament in June. Mass same-sex marriage weddings are already being planned for January 22nd of next year, the day the law comes into effect. Thailand will be the third country in Asia to recognize same-sex marriage, following Taiwan and Nepal. Hong Kong's population is aging, with its senior residents getting lonelier and lonelier. One initiative aims to help the city's older residents reconnect with society through art. Cadence Quaranta reports.
Within her home in Hong Kong, retired factory worker Lee Soo-kum is learning how to use colored pencils to sketch the reds and greens of the plant in front of her. At 77 years old, Lee says she's grateful to be learning a new hobby.
充實啲咯，即係唔會話坐喺度等食啦、等瞓覺啦、等天光啦咁樣咯。即係雖然過兒學校，即係過咗時間先至嚟學，但係都幫助都幾好嘅。即係得閒啦，無所事事啦，咁睇電視又唔睇得咁多啦，咪攞嚟撩下咯。咁撩下又真係幾似嘅喎，撩得。
Lee's drawing classes are part of a larger initiative in Hong Kong that brings artists to elderly care homes to help older people improve their mental health through art. It was launched in 2022 by the Evangelical Lutheran Church Social Service of Hong Kong and will go on for 3 years. Organizers say they hope art will help older people reconnect with society and themselves.
咁我哋會見到啲老記成日都會話自己身體狀況差咗，或者啲社交網絡弱咗，而好容易產生嗰種孤獨感。所以我哋都好希望係透過呢一啲藝術活動係接觸翻佢哋，而同時佢哋有興趣，然後就可以建立翻一個新嘅興趣咯。
Hong Kong's population is aging, and by 2050, it's set to become the world's oldest city. By that time, an estimated 40% of its population will be 65 or older. And many of these elderly will feel lonely. The Chinese University of Hong Kong and the Salvation Army surveyed hundreds of residents aged 60 and over. They found around 68% said they were moderately or severely lonely. That's almost double the percentage that said so in 2018. There's hope that art can address this problem by adding meaning to people's lives.
佢透過觀察個物件，佢屋企入邊佢自己一個也好啦，佢自己一個嘅時候，佢對住佢每日日常嘅生活獲得嘅無論水果定乜嘢，佢本身去觀察佢呢個過程已經係有價值咯，而唔係好細。佢好開心，佢可以好唔開心或者點樣，但係佢可以有呢樣嘢陪伴佢咁樣咯。
For Lee, at least, it seems to be working.
係啊，太熱啦，坐喺呢度啊。
She said drawing is fun and has made her daily routine more interesting. She has artwork to show for it too, colorful flowers and animals. While the initiative may not be able to touch every elderly person in Hong Kong, it's at least brought a smile to this one. James Lin and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Asia's oldest tram system is under threat. For over 150 years, Kolkata streetcars have been part of the Indian city's cultural fabric. But tram enthusiasts worry this historic icon may soon be discontinued. Wesley Lewis has the details.
The bell is tolling for one of Asia's oldest public transportation networks, now at risk of being phased out. Located in the city of Kolkata, West Bengal, it's India's last operating tramway. For 18-year-old Kolkata resident Deep Das, the streetcars aren't just a mode of transportation. They are part of the city's unique charm.
Whenever I sit in tram, I can see the city through a different point of view, because these wooden frames have a different taste of vision. I can see the detail of the city through this tram because it's very nostalgic.
The tramway was established in 1873 when Kolkata was the capital of British-ruled India. The trams have witnessed over a century of historic events, both pre- and post-independence. The network once boasted 37 lines. Now only 3 remain. Traffic congestion and neglect have contributed to declining ridership, but locals like Das have not given up on the trams.
I really feel sad about it that I am riding these trams and one day they all will be scrapped. But the next time I think that we can be the change, we can do something. So let's not lose hopes and let's fight for it. We can make something better out of it instead of scrapping it.
The state government says it plans to shut down the 151-year-old network, except for one line they plan to use as a heritage joyride route for tourists. Tram advocates say the streetcars have taken a back seat to the city's car, metro, and bus infrastructure, but they say trams are a better investment.
Service life of the trams is 50, 60, 70, 80 years life, in contrast to 5 to 10 years for buses, state transport buses. And for tramways, the operational running cost and everything is minimum. Spare parts may be expensive, but they are so durable that in the long run, these are all economically sound.
The Tram Users Association says this issue isn't just a question about finances, but also of national identity.
This is the only city in India which has the tramways, and if this is removed, then this glory of the not only the city, the country will be lost.
Tram advocates say investing more in the electric streetcar system can help Kolkata, a metropolis of over 15 million people, cut down on traffic and pollution. And as committed riders continue their fight to preserve the streetcars, they hope their city won't lose track of a piece of its cultural heritage. Kamashu and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
And we'd like to thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, get your notepad ready. These are the latest looks for Spring-Summer 2025, recently revealed at Paris Fashion Week. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.